So many of you have wanted me to do a video of what it takes when I get to the aircraft in the morning, basically uncover it, get it all inspected, get it fueled, get it ready for liftoff. So here's my camera. You're going to come with me whilst I get this aircraft ready to start the day fighting these wildfires. Well, here is the E-Star at the moment. We've got our blade tie downs on, we've got the covers on, and of course I'm trying to make a video. We've got a train parked right next to a rail crossing, so we've got the dinging of the bells. Every time, I'm telling you, make a video, something's making noise. Pain in the ass. Okay, so yeah, this is going to be quite a long video, guys. I'm going to put my coffee out of the way, because if we kick that over there, that is the end of the day. So the way that I always like to start my day is by just soaking down my windows, because they're covered in bugs and dust. So I give them a good spray to start with. It allows the bugs to soften up, so that by the time I come to wash the windows in a little bit, makes it nice and easy. Same with all the nose. There we go. Pretty quick, pretty simple, but man, it makes getting those bugs off, especially at the moment. It's so hot here. I think yesterday we were up to about 35 degrees Celsius. I have no idea what that is in Fahrenheit. I'll have to put it on the screen when I edit the videos, but yeah, it's hot. And then when you get in the E-Star, oh my god, it's even worse. So yeah, bakes the bugs on, and I swear they just turn to solid concrete. Don't know what it is with bug guts, but yeah. Okay, so what we'll do first, we'll get all the blade tie downs off. That way I can turn the blades. And because I'm sitting on a fire today and I've got the Bell 212 with the belly tank on it, I'm not sure if he's going to be going out first or if I am. So usually what I'll do is I'll take my blade tie downs off whilst I'm doing my daily inspection and then put them back on, just because when the 212 lifts off with the initial attack fire crew on board, it creates a lot of wind and it just smacks the bejesus out of the rotor system. So it's just easier to take the blade tie downs off doing the DI and then put them back on ready when the machine is all finished and ready to go. So yeah, it's a beautiful morning here at the moment. It's hot already. I don't even know what the temperature is. I bet it's got to be mid 80s already. It's only like 8 o'clock in the morning. So in this aircraft, we just keep the tail boom, cargo hold empty. This is where I kind of put my stuff. So we've got a survival kit, our X, my window cleaning stuff, my sun visor, which I'll put in later on, and we've got our COVID wipe down kit. So at the end of the day, I clean down the machine with the COVID wipes, or with the, I wouldn't say they're COVID wipes, just the alcohol wipes, and then that allows the alcohol to sit and do its thing overnight. So next thing comes off is the engine intake and engine exhaust cover. This one's an integrated one for this E-Star, and it's there primarily just to protect dust and rain from going in the engine overnight. And I'll show you why in a second once I get this off. I'm only short, so I end up going back and forth a lot using steps, ladders, ski basket, because yeah, it's at 5'6", guys that I used to work with nicknamed me Lord Farquhar from Shrek. And if any of you have ever seen that movie and watched when Lord Farquaad gets down off his horse and he's about 2 foot tall, you get the picture. So if I don't have a pair of steps with me when I bring the machine away from the base, yeah, I struggle. Yeah, joys of being a short Oompa Loompa. But it means I've got lots of space behind my seat when I fly for the guys and girls that ride behind me. So there's some bonus to being short, I suppose. So what I'm doing now is I'm just wrapping up my cover, tying it up, and then we put this back in the tail boom cover. So yeah, so the cover, like I said, is mainly there to stop dust going straight into the engine exhaust, and then the other thing we have it for is up here, is to cover the engine intake, because with it sitting on top, if it rains, basically all the rainwater comes in, soaks through, and then goes down the funnel, which is in here, and goes straight into the engine. And it basically can puke lots of water into the engine, which is not good because water and fire don't mix, and water usually puts out fire, and I need fire to make the engine go. Okay, so now the aircraft is all uncovered, blade tie downs are off, engine exhaust cover is off, and it's basically now I go around and start my DI, or daily inspection. Daily inspection is mandatory on these aircraft, and I also like to just pop the covers anyway, just to check underneath before I fly, because that way then any birds have made a nest or anything like that in there during the night, it just gives you one last chance to find it, deal with it before you go flying, because you just never know. Your aircraft has been left for the night, anybody could have come and touched it, played with it, who knows. Okay, so the first place we're going to go is we're going to go into the left hand side main transmission area. Basically just pop in the latches here, pop in the cover, and the daily inspection is more of just a quick visual inspection. The engineers do the main inspections, but by doing this every day you get to be able to just wipe it down, keep it clean, and check to make sure nothing is broken or any of the indicators have popped, things like that. So I basically just kind of start at the front and work my way through, and I'm just looking around, making sure there's no excessive oil leaks, there's no cables that have chafed or anything like that. I'm looking at all my bolts, make sure they're all split pinned, especially on the flight controls. They're the really important ones. I don't want to make sure that everything is loose. Oh. You might get whacked a few times. I'm not used to having a GoPro stuck to my head when I'm sticking my head inside areas. So as I'm coming around again, just making sure all flight controls are pinned. Checking my gearbox oil, that's as it should be. And if you have a rag, you always keep hold of it. Never ever put it down in an aircraft, because rags have brought down many a helicopter with drastic consequences. So just check in here, make sure there's no water in my little sight glass here. I'm making sure that it's not popped. It's got a little indicator in there that pops if it starts to block. Oh. So yeah, everything's looking pretty good. I like the A-Star because it's really nice and open. It's really nice and clean. Makes it really easy to do your daily inspection. So at the moment everything is looking good in here. One thing I'm just going to do is I'm going to check the bypass indicator light on this filter. Oh, refreeze that. It's not a bypass indicator, it's a clogging indicator. So I'm just pressing it down and I can see the light in the top right corner of the instrument panel coming on and going off. So I know that indicator is working. Oh gosh, it's warm in here. One thing I like to check is make sure this is secure, because if this clip comes off and this falls down, it can come down and fall in here and lock, and this is one of your flight controls, which is not good. So yeah, everything is looking pretty good. I'm not doing a full in-depth detailed daily inspection for you guys here, otherwise yeah, you would be asleep. Usually if I'm sitting out in the bush and there's not a lot to do, I'll pop the covers and just give my aircraft a really good DI. Sometimes it could take me, you know, over 2 hours to do. It's not necessary to do it that in depth, but you know, you're sitting out in the bush with nothing to do, so why not? So next I like to do is come up and start looking down, just looking, making sure there's nothing in the engine air filter. All the bolts are secure for that, and there's nothing else that's up here. Then I come over and I start looking down into the top of the transmission housing. So again, I'm just looking at all the nuts, making sure they're all split pinned, looking at all the hoses, the cables, making sure there's nothing loose, nothing chafed, making sure that there's no cracks appearing anywhere. I mean, you get kind of cracks like this is just cracked in the paint, but I'm looking for, you know, cracks across welds and things like that. I also like to give the fan a spin, because at the moment it's harder than hell, so that fan is used all the time and it takes a long time for the engine to cool down once I've stopped running, so I need to make sure that is still working. So as we're coming round, just looking, just checking, everything looks good. Then I'm going to start coming up, I'm going to look at the swash plate again, checking all my bolts, making sure they've got all the split pins in. As you can see, the pin goes through and then goes that way, and then the other leg comes around and comes back into one of these notches. And this is all it is, it's just a visual inspection. As part of an airworthiness directive, I have to check the witness marks on each of the 3 pitch links, so one here, checking both sides. I've obviously had a problem where they've come loose, so that's the latest AD from Airbus to check them. And then just checking my pitch links, make sure they're not bent, make sure they're free of play. And then we start coming up, looking at excuse me, looking at the rotor head here. We've got 3 springs that hold a big heavy weight, it helps to balance it in there, so we're just looking at those, coming around, checking all the wire locking on all the bolts. And again, it's just a visual, just for looking for anything that's untoward and has changed since the last time you looked at it. So the elastomeric bearings, just making sure they're not splitting, because these are basically layers of rubber and aluminum, or it could be steel, not sure, but they're all in layers, so it allows the rotor blade to twist and do its thing. And again, in the stall, just looking for cracks, anything untoward. Checking down the back end of the blades, undersides. Just checking, make sure nothing's hit a blade, nothing's come up or blown up like a rock or anything like that, made a chip or a dent in the leading edge. Back side of the star on the yellow side. Again, just going around and just looking, making sure everything is where it should be. A lot of times having a wiggle of something helps. It just kind of allows you to feel how much play is in stuff. You get used to an aircraft over time, and some things are a bit looser than others, some have got a bit more play. I've just been flying the company's H125, which is a B3E, which is 2 years old, and that hardly has any play in it, whereas this one, I think this one's like a 95, there's a lot more play in things. So yeah, you can definitely feel, I mean, the play's within tolerance, but you can definitely feel. Okay, so whilst I'm up here, I've undone these 2 things. I'm just going to check my bypass doors to make sure they open. So if my engine air filter starts to clog, I can open these bypass doors and unfiltered air goes into the engine, but at least it's getting air. And the other week I was flying on a fire, it was so dusty, and a lot of ash, and I needed to be able to open those because my filter was clogging on the last flight back. So I'm just going to press the button, we're going to run up, we can hear the doors, you can see the doors closing, or opening I should say, closing off the filter, opening, whichever way you want to put it. And then we come back. Okay, that's open, we're all good there. Just caught my button there. Okay, so now my bypass doors are good. I've opened the latches for the engine cowl on this side, so this is where I need my ladder because my short stumpy legs are too short to be able to go and lift up the cover because it's heavy. And I swear I've tried to do it standing off the step there. About blown my O-ring out trying to do it. So I'm 42 now, I just make things easier. So what's the saying? Work smarter, not harder. So yeah, as I've got older, I've figured out how to do things smarter to make it easier. So basically just put the prop into the hole there just to keep it open. This is the only prop holder we've got. Sometimes the engines have them up here and then you can get the cover right open, but I can see enough here. So what I'm looking for on this engine is making sure that there's no cracks in any of the welds, there's no hot spots, there's nothing loose, there's no oil leaks, anything like that, anything that basically shouldn't be there. And again, it's an Ariel engine, so it stays clean. It's great. Like the bells over there, he spent half the time wiping up the grease that's slung everywhere before he can even get to do the daily inspection. So those guys have their own dedicated engineer, which, you know, I'm kind of jealous of because it would be nice to come and have my own engineer come and DI the machine and wash it and clean it and sweep it out and get everything ready. But yeah, I don't have that luxury flying in on an intermediate. So I was talking about the bell there that comes down from the engine intake cover. So you can see the underside of it there, that sits down onto this rubber seal when the cover is closed, and then that water would then come through and come down, and here is the start of the engine intake. So basically that water would just come through, sit in the bottom, and then when I fired up the engine it would pull all that moisture through and can cause a flame out. So yeah, not good. So that's why we cover the engine at night or whenever there's rain. So this side looks all good. These are magnetic chip detector plugs, and basically if there's any particles of metal floating around in the like accessory gearbox or the MO5 I want to say, not sure, I'm not the engineer, these will pull them out. Normally what we'll do is we'll pull these at the end of the day when the seals are warm, but I'll pull one now just to show you. And all it is just a magnetic plug, and if there's any chips of metal on there it'll be shown straight away. So yeah, usually that's part of the after the last flight of the day, I'll just pull. There's a few of them around. We've got two on this side of the engine, we've got one in the engine oil and one on the hydraulic fluid, and we just pull them after the last flight just to make sure. It also then gives us a bit of time to make sure the engineer can get out here before the first flight of the following day. So the easy way, just look, you just check this red dot, red dot, red dot, red dot, they're all lined up. It's nice and good. So the engine on this side is looking nice. There's not much, no oil. Sometimes we get a bit of an oil leak seep here between the joint from the generator and the accessory gearbox. Sometimes you get it here too, but at the moment this one's looking good, and everything on this side is looking nice. So what I do now is I leave my engine cowl open and I go around the back of the machine and work my way to the other side. Again, need my steps. So what I'm doing now is I'm coming out, I'm just looking at the skin of the tail boom, because the skin is part of the structural integrity of the tail boom. You want to make sure there's no dings in it, no dents. I'm looking down the strake, making sure there's no tools or anything up there, because for some reason engineers like to put tools up there. I don't have an engineer working here at the moment, so I don't have to double check as bad, but I always just like to run my cloth down it, or my paper towel down there, just to make sure As I'm coming along, just checking all the screws are horizontal for the tail drive shaft cover, and looking down on the tail boom underneath, making sure everything's nice and secure. Checking all my aerials, just giving those a wiggle, making sure they're not loose. And then I'm coming down to my horizontal stabilizer, making sure there's no dints in the end here. Again, you get stones and stuff collect on the bear paws down there, they can come off in flight and dent this. Give it a quick check, make sure it's nice and tight. And again, using my ladder, I've just got to come up and see, making sure there's nothing sitting on here that can come off and go back into the tail rotor. Also just doing a quick check for rivets, make sure no rivet heads are broken, make sure there's no like black marks around the rivet where the rivets, I think they call it smoking, and it sits there and it looks like the smoke collected around the side of it there. These are the things that I look at when I do my big inspections out in the bush. I just go through and just look at all the rivets, making sure that there's no smoking, no cracks around them. And then we come back to the tail rotor. So the tail rotor, I want to make sure the tail rotor surface is clean, there's no dents in the leading edge. Check both sides of it. The other thing I'm checking is the witness tabs here, make sure I didn't smack anything with the tail rotor, like a little tree or a willow or a bush on my last flight. And then I'm coming down, checking the witness marks and the tail rotor pitch links, because that's another airworthiness directive. So I'm just moving the pitch link here just to make sure there's no excessive play. And again, we're looking for all the bolts having their split pins in there. Coming down to the second side seam, smacking my camera again, checking the play for this pitch link, witness mark on there, and again just making sure everything is nice. Looks like I'll have to give this a bath soon, it's starting to coke up. And then seam coming down, checking the leading edge, witness marks, blade surface, both sides, making sure that there's no dints or imperfections. As I come back up now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the blade over and I'm going to look in here, make sure that there's no delamination of the elastomeric bearing here, and then this side, and then here, and then the other side. And then the other AD is we've got to check this spar in here, so we have to bend the tail rotor, make sure that you don't hear any crack as you do it. So if you've got a crack, then you've probably got a faulty spar that runs all the way through the tail rotor. Okay, so coming along, checking the slider, checking there's a little bit of vertical movement on the bell crank here, which there is, which is nice. Here is another magnetic chip detector, except this one's electrical, so if there's a magnetic steel chip in there, makes a circuit, puts a light on my dashboard to say that I've got a tail rotor chip. So I need to land and check it out and see what we got, see if it's just some fuzz or if it's an actual chip that then needs further investigation. So as I'm coming around, just checking, make sure my vertical fins are nice and secure, again making sure there's no dents on here. This rear end gets dented a lot, especially from rocks on the bear paws, so if you ever going to be starting to fly helicopters, a great tip is to check your bear paws before you take off, especially if you're landing in a quarry or a gravel road or anywhere where there's a rocky substrate. Before you take off, clear all the rocks and dirts off the stingers and your bear paws, because if a rock comes off, like I had last year, it came off and smacked the leading edge of just one of the rotor blades, put a dent in it, and that was the end of the tail rotor. The dent was too big, it was outside of Airbus's tolerance, so the tail rotor was toast. It had to go off for repair, and I don't even want to know what the cost of that would have been. I bet it was probably around about 50 grand. So make sure you look and clear your rocks off your bare paws. So the tail rotor is looking good. The tail cone is nice and secure, it's just bolted on here. I like to give it a wiggle. So I'm coming along, checking my tail rotor gearbox oil level, that's all good. And then as we go back down the tail boom, I'm looking at rivets, skin. Being short, it's great because I can look down the bottom end of the tail boom and I can see if there's any dents or oil canning. Sometimes if the E-Star has had a hard landing, the tail boom can bend like this and you can put a crease in it here, and if you've got a crease, that's the end of the tail boom. So yeah, not good. So you need to have a look for that. So yeah, so everything's looking nice and clean up here. We don't have a strake on this side, it's only on the other side, as part of the aerodynamics to help take some of the load off the tail rotor. And in this A-Star we have a battery mounted way down the tail boom, and it's a pain in the ass because it makes the tail sit so much lower. And as you can see, the tail is already low. Like, I'm 5'6" and the tail comes down to my belly button. Putting this tail boom battery in makes it even lower. So yeah, it's the only one in the fleet, and I've been trying to get our engineers to change it when in winter time and put it back in the right hand cargo cheek, but yeah, we'll see. So battery's nice and secure, breakers aren't popped, connectors on. That's all I need to do for that one. But again, as I'm around here, I'm just looking at the extra doublers that have been put on here to take the weight of the battery around here. So just want to make sure that there's no cracks starting around there, just to again make sure it's a heavy weight that's quite far back. So to help level the aircraft, especially when I'm in there by myself, one of the tricks that we do is we put some weight up at the front. So in here I've got my aircraft toolkit, and we've got a bag of barrel slings, and they're quite heavy. Between the two of them there's probably 50 pounds worth of weight, so having that stuff right up the front helps to keep the aircraft's center of gravity within limits and helps keep my tail rotor up, which is good when I'm flying in and out of the sites at the moment, because it's all unprepared landing sites, because we're taking water and gas and food into the fire crews on a daily basis. So yeah, there's no such thing as a concrete pad like this out in the bush, so you have to really be mindful of your tail rotor. So now we'll come on to the left hand side of the engine. Just gonna quick have a look inside, make sure all the turbine blades are good, there's no dents in there, which would be really expensive. Making sure again there's nothing in there like the birds have got in there, made nests or anything, hence why we put the cover on. And then whilst I'm up here, I'm just looking over the top of the engine, just checking all the cables, all the pipes, making sure nothing's loose. You can just give a quick gentle wiggle on things, that really gives you an insight as to if something's tight or loose. And these are all the oil lines coming in here, making sure they're all nice and tight, there's no leaks around them. Checking the there's a little red button in there if the oil filter's gone into bypass. I think this one, it's either bypass or blockage. Either way, if there's a red dot in there, I'm calling the engineers. Then I'm coming along, I'm just checking the linkages to my fuel control, making sure they're nice and secure, and just again checking, making sure there's no leaks, no loose nuts, connectors, wires, no chafing. I'm looking up, I don't know if you can see, but up here is my bleed valve, making sure that's there, and I'm just feeling the top of it. It's got like a grill on it. I'm just making sure there's nothing stuck in the grill, like a stick or a leaf or anything like that that can impede its, let's see if we can get the camera in there, it can impede its operation. Give the bell a quick wiggle. So yeah, so as you can see, it's nice and clear. Oh my god, these bugs are driving me nuts. We've got a little bit of a breeze here today, which is keeping some of them down, but oh, if I could live somewhere where we don't have bugs, oh, that would be fantastic. But I suppose there's always a compromise to wherever you live. So yeah, so this is all looking good on this side. Oh, flies! These are the horse flies, and they take a chunk out of you. I need to get old Mr. Miyagi and his chopsticks out from Karate Kid and the original Karate Kid, not the new one. For all you young kids out there. Catches a fly with chopsticks, so that's what we need to do right now. Okay, so the engine bay is looking good, so what I'm going to do now is go around the other side, move the ladder over, being careful to watch the paintwork, and then we will close up the engine cowl, and that is then done for the day till I come back. So a tip for anybody who's going to be becoming a pilot or is a junior pilot: whenever you take or undo a cowl, always go around and shut all the cowl latches right then. Don't think, oh, I'll do it later on my way back around the aircraft. Always do it when you're doing up all the other ones, because you can forget, and if you forget, you might be fine. One day you might not. So just do them up. If you undo them, do them back up. That trick or that tip will save your ass. So I gotta come and get some coffee. Okay, so now we're coming down onto the right hand side of the aircraft. Checking my electrical connection, make sure that's nice and secure, and then we're going to go up and check in the right hand side of the engine compartment, the right hand side of the transmission compartment. It's weird talking through what you're doing. You get into such a routine of just doing it and kind of talking in your head and looking, and when you have to actually talk through it, you get tongue-tied sometimes, so just bear with me. Okay, so on this side we've got the engine oil reservoir, which we can just see by looking in there. We've got enough oil in there, which is good. If you put too much in, it pukes it out, ends up covering your tail boom in black. So that's all good. We've got an engine oil magnetic chip plug here, which we check at the end of the day. Engine oil filter with a red indicator button on the top, so we check that, make sure it's not popped, and then just making sure that there's no leaks on any of the engine oil lines. This guy here is a diverter valve for the engine oil to go through the cooling fan. So pretty much at the moment it's always open, sending oil through the cooling fan. When it's cool, that closes. I think it's on like a bimetallic strip kind of deal. It just closes and the oil stays away from the oil cooler when it's cold. You know, when I'm flying around when it's minus 30 in the winter here and there's 3 feet of snow. So now I'm at the other end. I'm at 30 degrees Celsius this way, not minus 30 Celsius the other way. So just coming up, checking all my oil lines, checking the fan from this side, making sure the cowl's all good, making sure there's no breakages. Again, looking at all the cables, making sure there's no loose wires, make sure none of the zip ties are broken, or if there's any cables hanging off where they're broken off. Just checking the oil filter as it comes back, make sure it's nice and tight. It's lock wired anyway, but you always want to just check it, because you lose engine oil, it's not a good day. And then just coming around, looking at this side, checking all my flight controls, making sure they're all wire locked again, or have the split pins in there. So this is wire locked here. This basically stops the nuts from undoing. Just coming through, checking, making sure everything is as it should. Just moving around, looking all the welds, cracks, paint chips, anything that's indicating that there's an area that's under stress, and we need to have the engineers address it. So as I come around, checking my hydraulic fluid here, my hydraulic fluid is as it should. There's no leaks on that. Then we're coming down, hydraulic distributor, there's a little red button here. If it's popped out, then there's a problem there, because that's gone into bypass. Magnetic chip plug for the hydraulic fluid, so this is on top of the pump. I want to make sure the pump is nice and secure. Check the play on the belt, make sure there's no excessive play, because otherwise then I start to lose hydraulic pressure as I'm flying, because it's just driven, belt driven off the main drive coming into the transmission from the engine. So everything's looking nice and clean in here. There's no oil leaks, not too much dust on the floor. And that looks good. The other thing to check is on the underside of your cowl covers. Oil being sprayed all over is a good indicator that you've obviously got oil leaking somewhere, so you need to address. Yeah, because you know, train is finally moving. What's that now? 30 minutes it's been sat there whilst I've been here. Train horns, loudest horns in the world. Of course they're going off whilst I'm doing my video. So one other thing, another tip that I've got for you, if you're a junior pilot, new pilot, pilot to be, if anybody's doing a visual inspection or an inspection on your aircraft, leave them alone. Do not distract them. They could be at a critical part of tightening up something like this. You come and distract them, they forget to tighten it up. Could be bad scenario. So leave people doing inspections or work on an aircraft. Let them come off the aircraft and be in a position where it looks like they are ready to talk or able to talk, then talk to them. There's been a lot of aircraft incidents and accidents where an engineer has been distracted and left a wrench up here or something, or even a wrench up here, and then they've started it up and yeah, the wrench has gone flying. There's many a hangar with a dent about 15 feet high in the wall because of a tool that was left on the road ahead that was started up outside, and the road ahead flung the wrench, screwdriver, you name it. So as we're up here, just same as the other side, just checking, making sure there's no cracks, elastomerics are good, nuts are tight, wire locks are good, there's no snapped wire locks, witness marks of the pitch links as per the AD. Just looking down the leading edge and the trailing edges of the blades that I can see. Again, making sure everything is as it should be. Okay, so that's the under the covers of the A-Star. Now what I like to do is to just go around kind of the outside and just look around. I always like to open up my covers, make sure nothing's been loaded in, because you never know, somebody goes and loads a load of weight in there one night, you don't check it, you lift up and it catches you out. Then I come down and I'm just looking, skid tubes, making sure there's nothing bent, making sure my bare paws are good. I'm looking underneath at the hook, making sure it's all secure, nothing's loose. If I'm going to be doing any slinging or bucketing during the day, I'll come and give this another check just before I go and connect up all of my slinging gear. But everything's looking good, making sure there's no holes in the belly or anything like that, making sure all the latches are nice and secure for the belly panels. Again, you just visually check in, make sure everything is nice and secure. And coming around, you don't ever want to kind of walk under the tail boom. It's a bad habit to get into. I do it sometimes, but if you can, try and avoid doing that, just because you can catch an aerial and rip it off and it makes a lot of work. So again, just checking, looking at this side, checking all the cross tubes, making sure they're not bent, skid tubes, making sure they're not bent. Their paws look good. And as I come around, this is a quick release basket, so I always want to make sure it's nice and secure, because it's basically just one button that pulls out and the whole basket could come off. But the locking mechanism is good. Make sure the basket lid is good, so when the guys go and load up all their stuff later on, it's able to work properly. And again, just checking the latches underneath, making sure everything's good. I have to excuse the noise of the train, I'm afraid, but again, I'm making a video, so the world decides to be noisy. And then just coming around, just again, visual inspection. Open up my air vents actually. Let's get these windows open because it's going to be hotter than heck. Coming around, checking my pitot tube is secure, making sure my tampon string has still got string on it. I know that's a horrible nickname for it, but I don't know what the official name is. Trim string maybe, but everybody just knows it as a tampon string. It's horrible. Just coming around, checking the mirrors are secure. All the windows are secure, making sure there's no cracks in them from a bird strike. Anything like that, anything that shouldn't be there or is not supposed to be like that is what you're looking for on a daily visual inspection. Oh. Okay, so I'm happy with the outside of this. What I'm going to go and do now is we'll go in, just put the blade tie downs back on so they're on, and then it's a case of give the aircraft windows a bit of a clean, give the inside a sweep out, put some fuel in it, do the paperwork, and then we are ready to go. I've already checked the weather today, but as you can see, the weather's looking pretty nice out here. The fires are only about 15 miles away. We've got about 4 or 5 fires that are on the go at the moment. They're only small, so the ground crews are doing their thing. So here are where I fly. The ground crews camp out on the fires overnight, so we just make sure they've got all the gear that they need. Oh my god. I can't even put it in a foil today. What the hell's going on? Yeah, these foils are great. They block out so much sun. They stop your iPads from overheating. All the good fun stuff like that. Because yeah, there's nothing worse than you going to go fly. Then your iPad's like, no, too hot, sorry, can't work. And then all your GPS coordinates are stored in your iPad. So that's why it's always good to have your maps easily to hand. Oh my goodness, what is going on with this thing today? It's because I'm doing a video, I swear. There we go. Oh my god, that was painful. So you guys wanted a start to finish video, so you're getting one. I imagine some people this is like watching paint dry, but to others it's fascinating as hell. And yeah, honestly I wish I'd have had a video like this to see when I was learning to fly, but the internet wasn't as old way back when, so the amount of information and videos, YouTube wasn't even thought of. There was no such thing as videos back then, and if there was, your computer was so slow and your internet connection was so slow it took hours for them to download and watch. But yeah, this just gives you some of an insight of what I do, plus also how long it takes to get an aircraft ready before the customers show up. Because I have customers that show up and then they're just like, okay, let's go, and it's like, dude, I've been here an hour and a half already, you're late, and now you want me to rush? And it's like, no, don't ever rush. If you rush, you miss things. Could cost you your life. So just allow yourself plenty of time to get everything done, and I always try to be ready at least 20 minutes before your customers are supposed to arrive, because half the time they'll show up early anyway and they'll want to, you know, shoot the shit and talk and yeah, generally mosey around. And that is it, ladies and gents. I'm not going to go and show you fueling and sweeping out an aircraft and wiping windows, because that would be boring as hell, but that is how I get the aircraft ready. It's pretty much the visual inspection. My fuel hose is ready to go, put my bags on board, put the fuel in, wash the windows, and now I'm ready to go flying as soon as the fire crews show up. But as you can see, it's Sunday, there's not much activity here at the fire base, so there's no big rush, but I like to be ready. So there you have it. That is how I get my A-Star ready. Now if you want to see how I start the aircraft, make sure you check out the video here on, which side would it be, this side or this side? Make sure you check out the video on this side, make sure you check the video out on this side, and then you can I swear, will this train be any louder? Yeah, you get to see how I start the aircraft and take it for a flight. It's a really simple aircraft to start, to fly. It's a beautiful aircraft. So yeah, I'm not going to bore you with me sweeping out dead grass. So there you go, guys. If you love this kind of stuff and can put up with the train noise, give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.